Hey everybody, this is Matthew Soltesiak, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast, part of the Minute Media Podcast Network. This season, it's all grit. I speak with a variety of guests and interview key players, gaining more insight on what makes this team go. The Detroit Lions are now in a new, grittier era, and we look beyond just the kneecaps when it comes to the analysis. Welcome to another episode. In this episode, we preview the Detroit Lions Week 13 Thanksgiving Day matchup against NFC North rival, the Chicago Bears. Despite back-to-back winning seasons, the Lions are yet to win a Turkey Day game under head coach Dan Campbell, who is now going to attempt it for the fourth time. What will it take for the Lions to win this game? What concerns are out there, and what do we expect from Chicago? We hear from someone who follows the Bears closely as well. That and more. Let's get to it, Lions fans.
Hi, everyone. This is Herman Moore, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast.
Joining me today for this preview is Coach Jerry Angers, former Michigan High School Coach of the Year, as well as Coach of the Week by the Detroit Lions. He's the current Scouting and Training Director for Bull Rush Sports. Coach, we got a short turnaround this week. Good to have you here.
Great to be here, Matt.
Also joining us is James Cook, the senior sports writer for the Traverse City Record Eagle. You can hear him on the Get Around podcast. That drops on Mondays. James, it's good to have you here as well, and hopefully somewhat recharged or at least back from Indianapolis at this point.
I'm thankful that we are able to play a game after just a couple of days.
Yes, and it's nice to not have to have traveled too far for that road game, considering this quick turnaround the Lions do have. It's the beginning of, I believe, a 3-game homestand. And let's just start with the big topic. The Lions have not won on Thanksgiving since 2016, which also means Dan Campbell has not yet won a game on Thanksgiving as the Detroit Lions head coach. James, let's start with you. What would it mean for the Lions to win this game?
Well, if they win this game, he would jump ahead of 3 Lions head coaches in win percentage, Gary Moeller, Jim Caldwell, and Joe Schmidt, to be the highest win percentage by a Lions coach in Super Bowl era. I think he's probably going to mention that to his players or let them know about it somehow. So they'll fight for him a little bit. He's going to use a whole bunch of things as motivation that he always does. They haven't won on Thanksgiving when he's been head coach. They lost 3 more before that. So it's 7 in a row that they've lost. Before that 7 in a row, they won 4 in a row. And then before that, they lost 9 in a row. So he's got to be getting them going to say, hey, we got to get another streak going here. We can't have a losing streak on Thanksgiving. This is a national game. We the focus is on us. We need to keep people talking about us in a good way. So he's going to be using that completely for motivation for these players, even if the Lions are a little shorthanded coming into this game.
Yeah, I echo a lot of those. And I appreciate that research on him 1 win away at this point from being the winningest coach percentage-wise of the Detroit Lions. Do you guys know, I'm going to put you both out there on the spot, because I know this hasn't changed, but do you know the winningest coach in Detroit Lions history? And James, if you just found it, I want you to pause on that, but do either of you guys know?
I'm going to guess Wayne Fonts.
James, would you agree?
Just for total wins?
Yep, total wins.
It's somebody from way, way back. So
it's Wayne Fonts.
Is it Wayne Fonts? Okay.
It's Wayne Fonts. He is the winningest coach in Lions history, yes.
I know the highest percentage is somebody from like the 50s.
I believe that one.
Because they were dominant in the 50s.
Yeah. Do you guys know the coach for the Detroit Lions who has the most losses in team history?
But also Wayne Fonts?
It's also Wayne Fonts. Yes, it is, guys. Yes, it is. At least that stat was accurate about 20 years ago, and I don't think anyone's been the coach long enough to have changed that fact. So please fact check me if I'm wrong. Shoot us an email, comment on one of our things, and let us know. But Dan Campbell is, he's doing things that we haven't seen around these parts in our lifetime, folks. So that is exciting. And the Lions used to win on Thanksgiving when I was a kid. That was like the game they always got up for. Coach, what would it mean for the Lions to get this win?
Well, first of all, it's the Bears. and it's a divisional opponent. They want to keep the steam going forward on what we're doing right now because there are people chasing us. And I think the biggest thing, Campbell said, I heard Campbell say, quoted something about hug and kiss your family. We got a football game to play, and then you can spend the day afterwards with them. So, it's always, I guess the biggest thing is you always want to be the one pulling the legs off the John Madden turkey. And if you don't win the game, you don't win those awards. So I think he might be even doing that. He may have a turkey with 53 legs on it or something and promise everybody gets a leg.
There you go. I do believe the coach is going to have them motivated. Before we get to our analysis, here's a little more insight about the team we're facing, the Chicago Bears, from a guest who follows them. Here's my interview. I'm joined today by Coach Jesse Smith. He's coached football since 2009, both in Illinois and in Michigan. He was the head coach of a semi-pro team and is currently a high school varsity head coach. In addition to his coaching experience, he knows all things Chicago Bears and is even an Ohio State Buckeye fan. Coach Smith, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, coming into this year, there was a lot of hype around the Chicago Bears. The number 1 overall pick, they got Caleb Williams. They have a lot of players, talented players at the quote-unquote skill positions. They added guys like Keenan Allen and DeAndre Swift to that group. So adding to that excitement, the Bears started 4-2. That brought even more optimism to the team. Let's pause right there a moment. How were you feeling back when the Bears started 4-2?
4-2 as a fan, happy. As a person who coaches this sport, waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was excited by the number 1 draft pick. I was excited about wanting to change things up at the quarterback positions. I was not happy with not changing who's leading the team.
Okay. So the coaching aspect, and there has been a shakeup at coaching with the switch of the offensive coordinator. Do you think that's made any adjustments?
I think it made some. I think at the end of the season, there's going to be history repeating itself. There'll be a new head coach in Chicago and basically starting back over with Caleb like a year 1. I would have wished we would have came in, just cleared the slate and just started over with new coaching across the board.
All right. Well, since that's not changing right now, let's talk about Caleb. How has Caleb Williams looked to you? Because, after that 4-2 start, we saw the Hail Mary play, and then there was a losing streak that started, including a very recent game against the Green Bay Packers where a blocked field goal was the difference between winning and losing. And Caleb Williams had some nice plays in that game. So what are you seeing out of Caleb so far?
You see the talent is there, but I think you also see when you're not using the correct system, it can make you look not as good as you should be. I think last week kind of showed what we should have been doing using Caleb. He can move. He has an arm. I think the difference between Justin Fields and Caleb Williams, I think Justin had a little bit more hesitant to pull the trigger where Caleb can pull it and a little bit more accurate. But what I saw last week, it's promising, but I don't think this coaching staff would be here at the end of the year. So it's a double-edged sword on that one.
All right, but what I'm hearing is you do think there's a lot of promise and potential in Caleb Williams still at this point.
I believe so. You got to think with the weapons put in place that he should be set up for success. I think we also got to remember he's a rookie going from the college to the NFL. It's a different type of football. Like you don't have those incredible windows where you can just throw passes open. Like, no, you got to be precise with your precision. And like we look at the other quarterbacks in our conference. You look at Jordan Love. He's still struggling, and this is year 2 as a starter. But you see, talk of Jared Goff. Look at from what his rookie year to now. Like it takes time.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the strength of the Chicago Bears. What would you consider to be their strength right now?
Their red zone defense is their strength. Defensively, they show flashes. Our run game, I don't think we can really stop somebody running. But when we get into the red zone, we forced you to either kick field goals or go 4 and out. And that's kept us in the games. I go back to, watching the Detroit, the Packer game. They kept them out in the end zone, had some turnovers in the end zone. The red zone defense has been, I think it's one of the best, I think top 10 in the NFL. So I think that's kind of a strength for the Bears.
All right. And I guess what's the weakness on the team at this point? Because even though they have a losing record, they easily could have more wins, 2 or 3 more wins, and actually have a winning record at this point.
I think number one is the consistency on offense. We get drives going and we don't finish. In NFL, you got to get 7. You can't get 3s. You can't start good and all of a sudden you got to kick the ball. I think if the offense can be consistent, get points, I think the defense can help secure wins.
All right. Now, last year, Chicago and Detroit, they split. Arguably, the Bears could have won both games. It was a 98% chance they were going to win that first game. But going into the second game last year, a lot of people thought the Lions were going to win that one in Chicago, and it didn't turn out that way. So anything is possible. So let's start there. If Chicago is going to beat Detroit, what needs to happen?
Jared Goff needs to turn the ball over. That is going to be the key. That first game where the Lions came back and won, I think he threw 3 picks or had 3 turnovers, and the Bears took advantage of that. If that's going to be the key, the Bears have to force that Lions offense to turn the ball over because that Lions offense is really good. They can throw it and they can run it, which I said the Bears' run defense we struggle to stop the run. But when you get in the red zone, I think the Lions' strength is their red zone offense. They can run the ball. They got 2 great running backs. They got a great line, and we got to force turnovers. We got to make Jared Goff look human.
All right, it makes sense that the defense is going to have to do that to the Lions to get a Chicago win. If the Lions are going to win this game, what do they need to do?
It's going to be how that pass rush. If you watched last week, that Bears offensive line struggles to protect them. If they can get that pass rush going, that can take Caleb Williams out of his rhythm. I think, like I said, if they can eliminate turnovers and just play defense and get after Caleb and stop the run, I think the Lions would be in great position to get that W. I think right now the Lions are one of the complete teams in the NFL. They play really good defense. The secondary got better this year. Hutch is not even there, and then the defense is still making plays, but that offense is so scary. So many weapons on that offense, and like I said, the Bears front 7, they struggle to stop the run, and I think as good as their red zone defense is, I think Detroit just got so many weapons they can use in the red zone.
All right, I appreciate those insights. Any final thoughts, Coach?
As a Bears fan, I kind of, to be honest with you, to see Detroit get to the Super Bowl so we can get that hype over with. And, I think right now, as sad as it sounds, I think we're the Detroit Lions of the NFC North. It's us. We find ways to lose games, and that used to be the Lions' MO, but I think they got a great head coach, and hopefully our organization sees what a great head coach can do to improve your team and follow suit and pay your guys OC to come be our next head coach. So, I open up the wallet.
I have a feeling there's going to be a few teams trying to lure Ben Johnson away from the Lions at the end of this season. And if it's not Chicago, it might be Dallas or it might be another team.
I would be highly surprised if he is still the offensive coordinator for the Lions after this season.
All right. A lot of people were highly surprised this past season. I'm glad that was the case. We're going to enjoy the time we have with offensive coordinator Ben Johnson and just kind of see what the season has in store.
Yep, there you go.
Coach Smith, thanks again for all your insights and for being here today.
All right, thank you.
That's some great insight by Coach Smith from the Bears' perspective. And what he says makes a lot of sense. The team's got a lot of talent. They haven't been able to close out the games. There might be some issues with their coaching, he thinks. But despite not winning, they do look improved. And that has caught Coach Campbell's eye as well. Here he is with more.
This is a tough out. This team plays hard. They're physical. Got a lot of really good players. Offensively, quarterback's playing better. He's gotten better really every week. This last 2 weeks, playing pretty good ball, efficient. He's got weapons with Moore out there, and he's got 13 in the slot, and then the rookie Komet, tight end. O-line is, they've been banged up, but they're back, and they're doing a pretty good job. They're going to try to run it, get Swift on the perimeter. Swift's doing a good job. He's been a good asset for them. And then defensively, it's kind of the anchor of this team. So just a ton of good players, run and hit defense, good special teams crew. and this is going to be a hell of a test. It's going to be a hell of a test.
All right, so we've got a lot of analysis coming in. Let's start by talking about injuries, because we all know injuries are going to play a factor because it's a short turnaround this week, and the Lions are dealing with some injuries. So the practice report, the Monday practice report as far as who practiced, who did not. Well, it's lengthy, and it's a lot of no practices. Carlton Davis III did not practice. Taylor Decker, David Montgomery, Khalif Raymond, DJ Reader, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. No practice. Terry Arnold did have a full practice though, so that is promising. Coach, you heard from Campbell. What are you hearing about some of these guys, and what's it looking like going into this very short week?
Well, he said next man up, which is what they've been saying all year. He was looked a little confused, looked a little down on the Saint and Decker and CD getting those guys ready. But again, he said tomorrow's a big day, for them to go through practice. Today's a Monday and you're still banged up from the game yesterday. So, that could have a factor on how your body feels. So he did say he felt the Bears were getting healthier and that, we're still banged up, but it's whoever comes up next man up, you guys get your job done, and we'll prepare and be ready to play a football game. I'll guarantee you that.
All right, that makes a lot of sense. James, how concerned are you about some of these injuries on a short week?
Yeah, being it on a short week makes it a little more interesting. The full practice for Terry Arnold is good. He was one of those guys that I thought they might just sit for another week with a short week. But it looks like he's maybe going to be able to play or tracking him to be able to play, so that's good. They have him and Namik Robertson healthy. Mosley coming back. Maybe he can play some more reps. And then, we saw Kendall Vildor struggled a bit last week in the secondary, so maybe he doesn't have to play quite a bit as much if Terry Arnold is back. And Carlton Davis seems like, I think, a long shot. That's just a total educated guess based on that he's an older corner and this is a short week and him not practicing. It could just be a rest thing on Monday, but I think him not practicing and it being a short week could be a thing where they just say, well, let's play it safe with him. We'll set him and then bring him back for the Packers game because they're going to need all the corners they can get in that Packers game for sure. So the St. Brown thing is concerning, especially with losing Khalif Raymond potentially for a few weeks too. So they're down a couple of corners, or receivers. So if they go into that game with Jamison Williams as the number one and Tim Patrick is the number two, I mean, it really probably Sam Laporta is your number two, but and then Tim Patrick. That's the offense is going to look a bit different. I think you're going to see maybe David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs used even more in the passing game than normal, maybe. But at least David Montgomery, he didn't practice either, but it sounds like he should be good to go. He said that he will play. Same with Decker, that they would play on Thanksgiving. So that looks good.
All right, well, and we know, having Arnold back would be huge because that secondary is going to need him because this Bears offense, they've got some talented players on it. And so let's talk about that. What do we expect out of the Bears offense going up against the Lions defense? Again, coming in at 4-7 does not mean anything to me. Last year the Bears finished 7-10. They beat the Lions once and arguably should have won twice. And so we can't sleep on this opponent, and especially with Caleb Williams playing better. He's thrown for 340 yards, 2 touchdowns, ran for 33 on 6 carries recently. And between Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and Roma Dunze, they've got a talented wide receiving core that I think the depth of our secondary is going to be tested in this game. And so I think Terry Arnold being there is going to be big. James, what are you seeing out of this opponent coming in right now?
Well, the Bears are still clinging to playoff hopes. They have a chance. They're not knocked out. They've been playing a lot of teams close and tough in recent weeks. They've made changes in their coaching staff that seem to have sparked positive things with their offense the last few weeks. They're a team that they're kind of a caged animal. So having to kind of all but win out. After this week, they gonna have a long bye week after the holiday. And then they get at San Francisco, at Minnesota, Detroit again at home, and then Seattle at home, and then the season at Green Bay. So that's not it's not an easy road, but I think that those all, if they keep playing and keep improving the way they have the last couple of weeks, those I think are all potentially winnable games, except you hope for the other Detroit game.
Right. We don't want that. But again, last year, the way they came into Detroit and, it looked like Detroit was going to lose it. They came back to win it. And then we're sitting here thinking, oh, well, this road game in Chicago, we're going to win this game. But that's not what happened. So, coach, I mean, what are we expecting out of this offense coming in?
Well, again, they're solid. You got, 4 receivers, counting the tight end, all over, 350 yards, and then Allen's got 282. So, they're throwing the ball. Caleb again has got a new, like you said, new OC. And I think he was down to 2.46 or something like that on releasing the ball, which makes a big difference, getting it out of his hands quicker. With the new OC, you got to remember D coordinators don't have any film on the new OC to see how he's going to make his calls. So AG having a couple games under his belt to see what his thought process is going to help out. And, of course, in a short week that he has to come up with a game plan against our defense as well as they're playing. So I think that's, a big thing. I think we got a little advantage there, but you go back, you have to, and again, you have to keep them down. You cannot let them hang around. You cannot believe, you want to put doubt in their mind that, oh my God, here's another game we're going to lose. And, look what they did last week against Minnesota. Get the big touchdown, then an onside kick, tie the game up, get a 2-point conversion. And again, we go back to Caleb hung on the ball a little too long, thought he was in college and not in the NFL, and got a sack, and then Minnesota ends up wins the game. So, those are big things. Running wise, we talked about Swift. We know Swift doesn't like to go between the tackles. He had 30 yards last week, and I think that's one of the biggest things. Pascal and the edge setters got to make sure that we keep him hemmed in when he bounces, because he will bounce and turn those into big losses. Which should help us in that situation. So, but that offense is good. We knew it when they started picking up all those guys, and there's some good receivers. So we definitely we got our work cut out for us. Like Dan Campbell said, this is a huge challenge, especially it's a league game.
Yeah, it's matters for the division. It matters for the NFC. I'm expecting DeAndre Swift to want to put his best foot forward. He wants to show what he's capable of, kind of probably like what David Montgomery may have felt like when he went back up against the Bears. We all know DeAndre Swift is talented. It was just a matter of could he stay healthy? And he just struggled to do that year after year with the Lions. And so that's why things went in a different direction. And you get him outside, he does have some speed. He does have some playmaking ability. And so it wouldn't shock me to see them doing some screen passes to Swift in this game, because Caleb Williams might have to get rid of the ball on the short things if our secondary is doing a great job taking away some of those deeper shots. At the same time, I also think they're going to take some deep shots in this game, and they're going to test whoever we have out there. This is going to be a really good test for our secondary the second week in a row, and in some ways, an even tougher test. I know it's a rookie quarterback, and last week we had a second year. Even though Anthony Richardson was banged up and missed a lot of his first year, this receiving core is as talented as any receiving core in the NFC, if not the NFL. And so, it's going to be a great test for everybody we have out there, whether it's Emmanuel Mosley or it's Terrion Arnold. So I think trying to get pressure on Caleb Williams will be important, and trying to keep him contained as well. And so what role, Coach, do you think the linebackers are going to play in this game, and how impactful can they be on defense? Because if Swift is running to the outside, they might be some of the guys trying to contain that edge, right?
Yeah, we don't have Anzalone, and coverage wise, which is going to hurt us a little bit, but Campbell had such a big game last week. And I think Pascal on the edge is going to make a big difference. I think Nowaski, he's another linebacker. I think Long, who, even though he's an inside guy and he's not a coverage guy, is going to help us out in that situation. Anzalone does a pretty good job. So, I think, AG will set it up and keep into that situation. I don't know, and I don't believe we'll go to a lot of nickel in that situation. But if we do, again, Robertson, he had another big play last week, guys. I mean, the guy, he makes even, and I think James had talked about he didn't have a ton of reps because of the 2 tight end set, but him in there is definitely helped us out. And, maybe, Mosley comes in and gets some reps in that inside. So I think we got some bodies to do it again. We'll have to replace some corner concept, but we got to turn them into a one-dimensional game plan. And that's basically stop the run and then rally around the troops on the rest of it.
Yeah. And, DeAndre Swift, again, he's done well, but he's averaging about 4 yards a carry. He was largely ineffective running the ball against Minnesota this past week.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we can maintain that, that gives us a little bit of help for that secondary. But that secondary is going to be tested, James. What are you seeing out of the Bears passing attack coming into this?
Well, since the changed offensive coordinator, when they went from Shane Waldron to Thomas Brown, their offense has been better. You can't deny that in the last 2 weeks. Caleb Williams seems to be improving, whether it's just a matter of having experience or that change in coordinators or both. He's getting rid of the ball quicker, which was kind of his downfall early in the season. He was holding on to the ball for a long time and taking a lot of sacks because of that. The Bears upgraded their offensive line in the offseason, but he was taking so many sacks in the early part of the season because he was holding on to the ball so long that people were like, well, this is the same old junky offensive line that we're used to with the Bears the last few years. But now that he's getting rid of the ball a little bit, that line looks better. DJ Moore in particular, the last 2 weeks, you've seen a huge difference in him. In the previous 5 weeks before they made the change of coordinator, he had a total of 13 catches for 104 yards and no touchdowns in 5 weeks.
Wow.
In the last two since the change of offensive coordinator, 14 catches, 168 yards, 12 yards a catch, and a touchdown. So he's been a totally different receiver with the new offensive coordinator. So I think he's kind of maybe your most dangerous guy out of their 3. I mean, they have a nice 3-headed monster receiver with Roma Dunze and Keenan Allen as well. Ben Allen's kind of a possession chain mover kind of guy at this point in his career, and a Dunze is a big play threat. But Swift is also, like you mentioned, Swift is a huge threat on their team. I mean, he actually leads them with 943 yards so far this season from scrimmage, and 8 touchdowns. So I think you take him out of the game, and nobody's going to know better than the Lions on what his tendencies are.
Right.
We know like Jerry said, he doesn't like running between the tackles. It's not what he's good at. He's good at bouncing stuff outside. He's good at trying getting the ball on screen passes and as a receiver and getting the ball in space. So they're going to have to take that away. Without Anzalone, that makes it a little bit harder. But Malcolm Rodriguez has been pretty solid at covering guys coming out of the backfield as of late.
All right. Well, and the Lions defense ranks right about the round where the Bears defense does. Both of them are just outside the top 10 in total yards. The Bears, their rushing game's middle of the road. Their offense ranks low in yards per game. Coach, anything else you want to talk about with the Bears offense or the Lions defense?
Well, the other thing, Komet's going to be somebody we're going to have to watch over. He's a pretty damn good tight end. The other thing is, I didn't check what they've done the last 2 weeks, but he's had 41 attempts at 20 plus yards for only 22% completion. So they've thrown 20 plus yards. They had 41 attempts, 22 completions. So they probably have geared that down a little bit. And then his 10 to 19 range, he's got 56 attempts and he's only got a 50% completion. So I think that's stuff that's gonna come into play in that situation. And then again, there's another one too with his pressures. His percentage with his pressures is down pretty good. When he gets pressured, it's not the blitz concept; it's him not being able to look. And again, we saw how he hung on to the ball in the overtime game. So I think that's one of the biggest things we're going to try to do up front and get those pressures and try to eliminate it. But I think AG will have something dialed up for that, just to pressure him. And, if we get him on his back, and of course we got to make sure he does not use his legs to get first downs, whether it's a run or a pass, and, keep him in there so he can't set his feet.
That makes a lot of sense. James, I think you're looking at the same thing, right? Trying to get some pressure on him.
Yeah, and I think the way they're gonna, I mean, Zadarius Smith, the addition to him, obviously, is a very good thing for that defensive line. But I think Ali McNeil the last few weeks has been dominant. He's been pretty good this whole season. But so he's second in the entire NFL among defensive tackles in the metric that's called quick pressures, which is getting pressure on the quarterback in under 3 seconds. So he has 16 of these already this year, which is already more than his career high before of 12. So if he can get that pressure up the middle, get that push up the middle, that'll make Caleb Williams flush him out of the pocket, and then you make those plays on the edge. But I think Ali McNeil and Zadarius Smith are going to play a big factor in what Caleb Williams is able to do or not do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And he's going to have to go through his progressions quickly, or have one or two guys if we're getting that pressure on him. Because we saw that's the only way some other teams have been able to handle it is quick passing. We saw that a lot. So let's flip it over. What do we expect out of the Lions offense against the Bears defense in this matchup? Now, the Bears defense is their strength, but their rush defense might be a little suspect in this one, if I'm not mistaken. For the Lions, we know the rush defense is their strength with an improving secondary, but offensively, the Lions are balanced with their running and passing attack. And so, Coach, what do you think the Lions are going to do to attack this Bears defense?
Well, let's throw some numbers. Here, the Bears run 79% nickel. Okay. 72.2%, they run a 5-man pressure. 27.8%, they pass blitz for the pass. Okay. Over 60%, they run cover 1 or cover 3. Okay. Cover 1 or cover 3. So either 3 deep or just 1 deep and man underneath. So I think those are things to think about. Again, the nickel concept, that's where Laporta, go back to what you guys said, that Laporta may have to come in if St. Brown can't go. And so Laporta, we threw some balls to him last week and we weren't on, the timing was off a little bit. So this week, hopefully we clear that up. So I think that's a big part of it. Okay. So now MOFC, which is middle of the field, is closed. Okay. Middle of the field is closed when you have a cover 1 or a cover 3. Okay. And so they run that 68% of the time, which fits into why they're running cover 1 and cover 3. Okay. So I went back and I checked against Arizona. I found 2 other teams that we played in the past that do the middle of the field close. Arizona was at a little over 61%. Indiana was 64.2% was our last game. Okay. So our throwing concept, Goff was 3 for 3 below the line of scrimmage against Arizona. He was 12 for 14 on the short routes. He was 2 for 2 on the mid routes, and only 1 of 3 deep. Okay. Against Indiana, we were 9 for 9 below the line of scrimmage, 11 for 12 on the short passes. Those are all, everything's inside 10. Okay. Yep. Mid-range is 10 to 19. He was 6 for 9 and he was 0 for 2 deep. Okay. So what I'm trying to show you on that is if with similar numbers on that in Indiana, and we did the same thing against Arizona, we went to that mid-range and came inside of that all the way down to below line of scrimmage, which we talked about. If we don't have St. Brown, we threw the balls a lot to the running backs. What do you have? 5 receptions last week to the running backs, something like that. Does that sound about right? 5 or 6? It might be a little more, a little less. But those are the mid-range underneath routes, below the line of scrimmage routes. And then the tight end steps into those too with the mid-range routes, So if we're out with, not having St. Brown, or we do have St. Brown, you're going to see some of that JMO taken off. You got a cover 3 back there or a cover 1. And then your underneath and interior routes are going to be, or shorter routes are going to be a lot better. So I think that's how we will attack them because of that cover 3 and cover 1 concept. And then of course we'll run our run routes and stuff like that. So does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think especially if St. Brown is limited or not playing, and we know Raymond's out, this is another one of those situations where we're going to probably try to rely on that running game even more. And I know Montgomery was banged up. They said he could probably have gone back in that game. But I'm going to go back to something I brought up last week, which is, if you look at the number of carries our running backs have, I think Jahmyr Gibbs trails only Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry for yards per carry for someone who's had, a significant number of carries. I think he's number 4 in the NFL right now in rushing yards in the game. And he averages 5.8 yards a carry. But he's got a lot less carries than either of those guys. And Montgomery and him are like 145 and 154 for carry, something like that. So they've got less carries. I think they're going to rely on both of those guys. If the offensive line gets movement, you're going to see the Lions rely heavily on the running game in this game so they can control the time of possession. Then they can get long drives and keep their defense rested. And so and they'll probably bring that up later, but I think that's going to be the attack is get that running game going. Like James said, set up the play action pass, which will then help against that defense. James, what else you got about the Bears offense here before we switch over to special teams?
Well, and just the Bears in general. I mean, they had to play an overtime game on Sunday. So they're not only going on the road on short rest, but they're having even shorter rest essentially because they played an extra quarter. That's got to be something that helps the Lions. So I mean, just a worse turnaround for them, and then throw in the travel, even though it's not that big of a trip from Chicago to Detroit. But being on the road is still a bit of a factor. And it's a revenge game for Montgomery. The Bears let him go. So he's going to be motivated in this game as well. Especially I think when Montgomery kind of asked to go back into the game against the Colts, Campbell basically told him, no, we've got bigger fish to fry. And I think for Montgomery, one of those fish is beating the Bears.
Yeah, I mean they split with him last year, so he probably wants to get back up and have the 2-1, 2 wins, 1 loss against them at this point. And yeah, he probably wants to perform well against them every time he plays them, and can't blame him. But I'm also thankful that they let him go because we love having David Montgomery in the Honolulu Blue. So. All right. Well, let's go over to special teams. Coach, you love the Detroit Lions special teams more than most people. And I think most of us do quite appreciate them. So what are you seeing out of the Detroit Lions special teams that's going to play a role? And then I know James did some digging into the Bears special team. So what are you liking out of the Lions coming into this?
Well, our punt game, of course, and I know they've had some problems on their punt game and their extra point game and stuff like that. James will talk about that. And so I think that's one of the biggest thing. Our field goals are good. We got he's doing pretty well in that situation. So if it comes down to a long one, I think I feel pretty confident with that, getting the W. The hidden yardage chart. We should win that hidden yardage chart. And that's the biggest thing on it. You take it a few weeks back, we won a game basically because of our special teams or, give us short field. It's going to hurt us a little bit with return, because we don't have a punt returner right now. But again, we got bodies and guys that can step in and do that. So that's probably going to be a little concern this week on how they're going to change that up. So, but again, a third of the game. And you got to win it. You got to win special teams, and then one of the other two, and you're pretty much got a pretty high chance of winning a football game.
Yeah, and I mean Jack Fox played a good role last week, if I'm not mistaken, with helping change that field position in Indianapolis. And James brought this up. Sione Vaki might be our return guy this week. He's a rookie, but he's got some skills, and that would be great to see out there. James, the Bears have had some issues with special teams. Where can the Lions take advantage of this?
Pretty much all over on special teams. They've had muffed punts, they've had blocked field goals in critical condition, critical things. They did recover an onside kick, which helped them turn that game or take that game into overtime against the Vikings.
Yeah.
But aside from that, it's been kind of, the special teams has been what's kind of wasted away a couple of Caleb Williams' best games this season. So I think that their season might look a whole lot different if they had pulled out a couple of those games where special teams kind of cost them a win, they would be much more in the playoff hunt right now. And the Lions might have a little bit more of a cushion in the division if, had they beaten the Vikings and or the Packers in those two games. So the division could look a whole lot different if the Bears special teams wasn't such a hindrance so far this season. Even though I will say that blocked punt or the blocked field goal against the Packers should not have been a blocked field goal. The
I heard the
Packers went
NFL said it was okay.
they went over the long snapper.
No.
Yeah, they clearly went over the long snapper, and it should have been called. But the Packers did have another guy in there too. I mean, it's not like the guy that went over the snapper was the only one getting pressure. There was two or three guys that got through there and got some pressure. So their special teams has not been good this season, just point blank. And that's something I think that they really need to turn around. It's cost them a couple of games this season.
Yeah,
Well,
it has it.
Yeah, go ahead. And one of those things too. This is one of those games where Flip is probably sitting back going, I'm going to steal a possession here. We're gonna put some pressure on them. We got some injuries here. We got some offensive guys out here. So Flip might be saying, hey, let's go steal one. Whether we got, and who knows, are we gonna fake something against them here? On one of our punts or stuff like that. So yeah, this will be an interesting to see how that one all plays out. But I think that's something the Lions are working on right now.
Yeah, great insight there, Coach. Because this could be a prime example. Being banged up on a short week against a team that could be vulnerable, it might be that right opportunity to take advantage of that and execute. All right, guys. Major storylines, the unexpected. We got lots of stuff, right? The Bears had the Lions on the ropes last year at Ford Field. I think Dan Campbell has all he needs to motivate the Lions. The word trap game, I do not think exists for this team the rest of this year. There was a trap game earlier, but everything lines up. Nothing's a trap game anymore because every team represents something different, and the Lions have their sights set on winning the division and winning the NFC. So I think they have all the motivation, and I think all those Lions players that were there last year, remember how if it wasn't for a perfect Jared Goff and a few other players, many other players, they would have lost that game at Ford Field last year. And then they probably remember the loss that happened in Chicago. That was ugly. So no doubt that they will be ready for this game. A name that's come up is Daniel Jones, quarterback, New York Giants, formerly, now a free agent. A number of teams have been rumored to be looking at him. I believe the Raiders, they've had multiple quarterback injuries. If he wants an opportunity to start somewhere, get some playing time because he'll be a free agent next year, or there's a contender or two out there or three or four that might be looking at him as a backup. I mean, I think the 49ers are down a couple guys right now. I think Brock Purdy's supposed to come back. But let me ask you guys, I mean, this could get settled here in the next number of hours. And so by the time people even listen to this, we might already know where Daniel Jones is going. But, Coach, let's start with you. Would you like the Lions to bring him in as a backup quarterback? And if they did, that would mean they think maybe Hendon Hooker is still the guy for the future, but you want a little insurance policy behind Jared Goff just in case something happens because, you're running a special season right now.
Yeah, that's the thing is if how much faith do they have in Hendon Hooker coming in if something happened, and again now you got a guy that's been starting in the league. You got to, he's kind of a guy that, he's a Cooper Rush for us. Someone that can come in and win a big football game. Cooper Rush did that yesterday. Bring him in. He could help tutor Hooker also, and heck, it's only going to cost us $300,000. So. But if Hendon Hooker's done what he's been doing, and they feel comfortable with him, they won't even think they're probably not even looking at it. And again, he may even look at it and go, man, I could come and learn from the best offense coordinator in the NFL. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to see what happens with that one.
For sure. James, your take?
Yeah, I think that could certainly be something he's looking at. I mean, he's going to want to go somewhere else next year and regenerate his career, resurrect it. So what better way to do that than to come to Detroit play for, sit there, hold the clipboard, hopefully. But
Right.
learn from Ben Johnson, who's the best offensive coordinator in the NFL. Learn from Mark Brunell, like quarterback coach. The Lions are one of the few coaches or few teams in the league who have an assistant quarterbacks coach in JT Barrett. So they can split their attention and work on Daniel Jones too. And then he would give them a good backup quarterback, a veteran tested guy. I don't know if suddenly Jared Goff got hurt or something, if the Lions would want to necessarily just turn the reins over to Hendon Hooker for a Super Bowl run. Whereas Daniel Jones has won a playoff game in his career already. He beat the Vikings a couple years ago on the road in the playoffs. So he's at least done that. You can't argue that he's a talented quarterback. The success has not been there, but he does have talent, and he's a guy who can also run the ball too. So I think he could be a good addition. Also, one of the teams that's supposed to be interested in him is the Vikings. So you maybe take him away from the Vikings.
Yeah. I'm going to say, this wasn't on my radar at first when I heard that he had asked for his release and stuff. And, but sign him to the practice squad. Put him on your practice squad, let him learn some stuff and keep him on your practice squad. And if there is a time or a situation, then you've got him and he's learning the system and he's not taking up an active roster spot. That way you still have that for somebody in the secondary, somebody, a linebacker, because we have been hit with so many different injuries. We need those spots, but the practice squad seems like a perfect spot for him especially for the first few weeks. But that's like insurance policy, kind of like what the Lions were doing with, I believe, Zach Ertz late last season when we got decimated at the tight end position. We put him on our practice squad, and he was going to potentially be activated if we made it one more game in the playoffs. So, and the price is right. He got released, cleared waivers. It's a minimal cost. Yeah, bring him in. You got nothing to lose. I guess the only negative thing would be maybe Jake Fromm might lose his spot on the practice squad to make room for that, or somebody else would. Maybe it's not Jake Fromm, but there would be a practice squad player that might not get signed for that. But it's an intriguing idea. And James, I also like the fact that you talk about it. You're playing defense. It might not even be against the Minnesota Vikings. It could be against the San Francisco 49ers. And so any chance you have to play defense, you do that. All right. We've got no ref report because it's a short week and it's going to be a quick turnaround. So let's talk. What will it take for the Lions to win this one, Coach? What's your big takeaway?
Same thing. Establish the run, take some time off the clock, control the clock like we did last week. And I think keeping, turning them into that one dimension again as just if they're going to throw the ball, let's make sure we know every time they got to throw the ball. And lane responsibilities by the D lineman to keep him in that pocket so we can pressure him to get him to that bad completion rate that he has when he's pressured. All
right. James, how about you?
Yeah, I think they need to control the trenches, which is always they have tended to do. Take the run away from the Bears, make Caleb Williams into a one-dimensional passer, control the lanes so that he can't take off and run, make him try to be a pocket passer. And so I think if the defense can do that, it sets them up well. He's a young quarterback, and if they can do that, he will make some mistakes. That's just what young quarterbacks do. So that's the situation that they need to get themselves into. On defense, maybe they got a couple bodies coming back. Maybe Mosley can help them at corner to help replace Terrion Arnold if he doesn't play, or Carlton Davis if he doesn't play. But he gives them another body who I think they will ease back into the corner rotation. Broderick Martin was inactive last week, but I think he could be a guy who'd be as active this week and gives them one more guy to give them some push up the middle. So they do have some guys coming back, even though all the injuries they've had. So I think that's just what they need to do. And they just need to make sure that the Bears do not get out to a good start.
Yeah. Limiting that good start will be crucial in many ways because you don't want to give them hope because that's the dangerous thing. My things are no turnovers. That's what doomed them last time is turnovers. So no turnovers for the Lions and or win the turnover battle. And then I'm going to say establish the run against the Bears. I think that is going to be big because the Bears hung around because Minnesota's offense couldn't put them away. And if the Lions can run the ball and Jared Goff can be Jared Goff, then I think those things are going to kind of take care of things for him. So let's slide right into prediction time. I'm going to say the Lions run the ball for more than 150 yards in this game. They might even come close to that 200-yard barrier there. So that's going to be my prediction on the game. Coach, you have a prediction here?
We're going to steal a possession, and Laporte is going to have 6 receptions.
Oh, I like that with the Laporta thing. All right, James, how about you?
I think that you will see trick plays in this game. Even if the Lions get out to a lead, you're going to see trick plays. It's a short week. It's the one thing the Bears don't have the time to practice against, prepare for. And the Lions already have them in their offense. They already have them ready to go. So they're going to hit them with a couple of trick plays.
All right, I like all of those things. All right, folks, it's Thanksgiving time. I mean, you're going to be listening to this right before Thanksgiving. Hopefully you're having a great Thanksgiving celebration with family, with friends, whatever your thing is. I still remember having a conversation in college as I was wearing my Detroit Lions jersey, Chris Spielman, and we were talking about traditions. And I just said, I always watch the Lions on Thanksgiving. And so, as I'm sure, many of all of us do, many of our listeners do. But also with that comes meals and food. And Coach, I got to ask, is there a favorite meal, a favorite food that you look forward to on Thanksgiving, or a tradition that you do?
Well, everybody's going to say turkey and stuff like that, but you know what? It's the cranberries, and the cranberry out of a can. No nut, the smooth one where it's all pressed together, and just slicing that up and putting some turkey in between it, which I used to do on Thanksgiving Day down at Pontiac Silverdome when we grill down there, and that was the best part.
Wow, cranberries. I had no idea. All right. James, how about you?
I would not have picked Jerry being a cranberry guy.
Ditto.
For me, it's the stuffing, the done in the turkey stuffing. That is what I look forward to. I could pretty much just have a meal that is just the stuffing and King's Hawaiian rolls. I'd be happy.
All right. Well, I may be a rare one here, but we have turkey, and you got to have the green bean casserole
Oh,
that goes with it. And oh man, my mom makes the green bean casserole, and that's one of my favorites. So love that. And not actually home for Thanksgiving this year. We are traveling. I did mention that to you guys. We're recording this with me on the other side of the pond, and I'm not talking about Wisconsin. James did a recording from there, but I'm over in London right now, and we took a trip north to Warrington, and we visited where my wife's grandmother is from. She was a war bride. Autumn's grandpa served in the Air Force during World War II and was stationed there. And guys, I'm a big history buff, and it's incredible to like go there, and we were shown where the old airfield was that he worked, and you just realize how close people in England were to Germany and the advancement of the army at that point. And just seeing that history, appreciating it, and just learning more about the ancestry has been really awesome. So it's been a great family experience. And they're not going to be celebrating the Thanksgiving over here the way we would, of course. But there are a couple of interesting things that are going on for me. One is, and I'm not going to eat this, but I sent a message to you guys. KFC has restaurants over here, and they have something called the stuffing stacker. And James is a big stuffing fan. I don't see actual stuffing on this, but it is a triple decker sandwich, which has like 2 layers of chicken topped with, it looks like a hamburger, multiple layers of cheese, and maybe a barbecue sauce on top. So the stuffing stacker could be an option for people if you're looking for, outside the country and looking for a Thanksgiving thing. But we're actually going to be going to have a Thanksgiving feast at this place called Riding House Fitzrovia. And what makes this so special is they show NFL games. And I got to give a shout out to Roar of the Lions UK. I reached out to some of those guys, and they gave me some ideas of some places to catch a Lions game over here. I caught a good part of the game the other day, but we're planning to watch and have a Thanksgiving feast there at that one. So that's pretty exciting. Not home, but with family and able to watch part of home.
I
So,
like it. Have one of those stuffing stackers for me, will you?
dude, looking at that picture, I'm gonna post that picture on social media. I don't know how you get that thing in your mouth. I mean, that thing looks like it goes from like your eyeballs to your jaw. But I am halfway tempted to go in and try and order one just to see what it would look like. But
Yeah.
that's an incredible piece of food, I think, for
Yeah.
a fast food thing. All right. Any final thoughts before we get out of here, Coach?
No, sir.
All right, James, how about you?
I'm just looking forward to a win before the tryptophan starts kicking in.
Yes, the Thanksgiving nap. That is also an obligatory thing as well. So, folks, whether you're traveling, whether you're staying home, wish you a safe, happy Thanksgiving. Hopefully it's full of food and good football. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can find more episodes and content at notthesameoldlions.com. Tell your friends and family about the show. Like and comment on socials. Please subscribe regardless of your listening platform. And until next time, stay gritty, my friends.
If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.